suppose the other game then, Derry, they became the Orchard Thieves as I was looking at it after a shootout win, 3-1.
I'd say you've had a few of them back. I'd say you've had a few flaggings of that back in the day.
Indeed, I have, of course. But like, do you know the way Derry started this game? They looked like they were on fire. Brendan Rodgers had 1-2 on the board early, and it was starting to look like she's putting Ethan Rafferty, obviously a converted forward / midfielder, into goals. Was going to backfire because, he came out for that high ball. I think Derry had 2 shots in a row. Conor Doherty, his was blocked down. Then Paul Cassidy put an absolute bomb up in the air that dropped short around 10 or 12 yards out. Rafferty came, went back, and it only took a little nudge of a punch from Brendan Rodgers for the ball to end up in the net. And you're thinking, geez, this is the goalkeeping frailties coming because he's not a natural goalkeeper. But to be fair to Armagh, they spent the whole game trying to chase down Derry, and they didn't get level until late on. And the first time they led was in the first minute of extra time. And this is when Derry were obviously down a man because of the black card to the same man, Rodgers, and his late foul allowed Armagh to score a free through Reno O'Neill. Send it to extra time. But
you nearly got tongue-tied there. There's that much going on, isn't it? It was crazy stuff.
Yeah, it really was. And did Armagh suffer for not pressing on when they still had that man advantage and the point advantage that they kind of let Derry kill time? Or is it just easy for us to say it here?
That's probably easier for us to say it here. In fairness, I saw a quote that you pulled out of Tipcast last week. What was it? Hindsight is the foresight of a gobshite. Was that what it was? Well, basically, Mickey Hart said after Leinster final that it's easy to be watching from afar and saying we should have done X, Y, and Z. And it's, it is obviously when you're in the arena, it's different. It's probably the same for Armagh as well. But when they got 2 up, you're kind of thinking they might just have this. And then they just let Derry back in. And in fairness to Derry, they show great results.
I mean, in terms of the penalties, are you liking it? Some people are furious with it. But I just say, when you go to the end of extra time or end of normal time and it's a replay after a brilliant game, you're just letting the air out of the balloon. This will be remembered because it came to its most dramatic conclusion. And you might say, oh, it's harsh on players. They've missed penalties, so on and so forth. But players get red carded. Calum Lyons had to have the camera on him as he walked off the pitch and Waterford ended up losing the game. How's that any less harsh than a lad missing a penalty in a shootout?
Yeah, I just thought I don't like him for finals. That's all. I've no problem with an All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final or anything. I just don't like him for finals because I don't think there's a mad rush on playing games or whatever, and they could have just met again next week.
But to me, it's about the rush. It's about taking the drama out of the situation. It was thrilling because they kept going.
Yeah, okay. I don't like the harshness of it.
What's harsh about it? There's winners and losers in life.
Yeah, obviously. But you've lost an Ulster
the losers
final.
Are awfully.
Yeah, we'll see on Wednesday night. What was I going to say as well? I thought it was interesting. I saw an interview with Brendan Rodgers after, and I hadn't really thought too much about it. But it's weird to say that you can have no impact in the winning of the game, if you get me, that he's just standing looking at penalties been taken, whereas he's gone up and down the field for 95 minutes before that. It's just, I don't know. I wouldn't be a big fan of it, and obviously Armagh probably aren't big fans of it now at this stage. I agree with you on the drama point of view, and obviously they go back to the World Cup final. There's probably never been a more dramatic finale to any sporting event than that. If they played again the next week or 3 days later, it probably wouldn't have been the same or whatever. But I just think it's mad, to be honest with you. But listen, it's done now. Neither team would have wanted to play a replay anyway. That's the last thing they would have wanted going into the All-Ireland stages. So it probably was right to finish it on that day. Would it be right for an All-Ireland final to be finished on penalties? If you were a losing player who didn't take a penalty and it had no impact on it, I'd be pulling my hair out, whatever I have left of it anyway.
You've plenty of it left. But I don't like the idea that once the 5 penalties are taken from each side, if it hasn't been decided, it goes back to the same 5 players. I really don't like that.
Go down through, bring out the dregs, bring out the ones that don't want to take it. But I can understand in a way why they're not doing that. But it is a bit mad. And it's also bringing up the possibility of, just say if Reno O'Neill had to take another penalty and just say he missed another penalty. Jesus, that would have been, it was interesting actually, Shane, as well, and we go into it in a minute. I was down in Auckram where Reno O'Neill's uncle Oisin McConville was on the line for Carlow. Now I don't know if they lost obviously by a point, and I don't know if he knew that the Ulster final had gone to extra time, but he made a fairly swift exit out of the place after anyway, and he said to the Wicklow lads that he chatted to them on Tuesday night. So I don't know if he went and watched the Ulster final, or he was just tick over the match and drove home. But 2 heartbreaking defeats and heartbreaking circumstances within fairly quick succession.
Leonard Tobin says, flip side, Shane, if it's a good game, I'd love to see another 70 minutes of it.
Of the actual game, yeah, I'd be more along that lines as well.
Are replays generally as good as the first game?
Come on, the 2014 All-Ireland final replay, I'm thinking wasn't as
rubbish.
good as it wasn't as good. Well, he lost, obviously. So,
2012 All-Ireland final, rubbish, Galway, Kilkenny.
The replay was a bit of a no-show as well. Offaly Clare 98 replay, brilliant. Second replay, better again.
Yeah, year some sucks down there in Offaly. Peg Leg Lanigan says, hindsight is the foresight of a gobshite. Is that not what you do for a living?
I don't think we
preempt as well.
Yeah, I don't think we go about hindsight. I think we call it as we see it. There probably is a little bit of hindsight in there as well.
Yeah, to be fair, there's a few people saying here that the Cork Clare replay in 2013 was one of the great finals, and it was, to be fair. So other than that, I mean, brilliant win for Derry. They're back into the All-Ireland group stages, as are Armagh, of course, as well. And those should be some excellent groups.
Armagh going to play Galway in a couple of weeks now. It's going to be a fair, tough start to that campaign for them.
Yeah, and then they've Tyrone and Westmeath, whereas Derry will face Clare, Monaghan and Donegal, which...
It's amazing, Shane, the scheduling, like, with due respect to Westmeath. If they'd had Westmeath first, they maybe have a chance to get back on the horse. Whereas now, they're fairly low. I'd imagine they supped some porter last night and maybe even today as well. And they'll try and get back on the horse in a couple of days. But, like, Pádraig Joyce was up there watching the game. They're in a totally different position. Do you know what I mean? Galway are kind of flying high at the moment, whereas Armagh are probably down their boots anyway at the moment. So they're going to have to lift it.
And any of those teams who've had an extra week, or in the case
Sorry,
of
Shane, no, as well. Someone has up the Dublin Mead Epics from '91 as well. You got me on the spot there about replays. I had not been prepared. There have been loads of brilliant replays, and listen,
and loads of rubbish ones. Bit of both.
Probably as well. The Dublin Mead saga that saved the GA financially at the time as well, by all accounts.
And also, it saved it from the huge wave of soccerdom after the World Cup. But how many times has it come to full time of a brilliant game and everyone's gone, there's no extra time, or it's ended there? I think that happens every single time.
That was such a Cork accent. You're like, oh boy.
Oh, I'm fled. Imagine we didn't get the Tip Limerick trilogy in 07. Leave them all at it again. To be fair, they weren't bad. Who do you think will win the Mayo-Kerry match, says Pádraig O'Malley? That's a really tough one to call, because we don't really have any form lines for either team, because Kerry was through Munster. It's not in any way difficult for them. And we just haven't seen Mayo in so long at this stage.
Yeah, really that makes it probably even more fascinating, doesn't it? Because you're really going into the unknown. If they play in another semi-final or final, you have a fair idea. You've like really recent form to go on, as in, probably a fortnight before that. You have nothing to go on. That'll be wedged down in Killarney, won't it? Jesus, that'll be the game of that weekend, realistically. I think it's on GA Go as well, actually. But that'll be the game of that weekend.
Did we kind of mentioned already about Rory Gallagher stepping back as Derry senior football manager, and his estranged wife had a front page piece on the Sunday Indo yesterday as well, and I think maybe that was part of the reason that he stepped back. Maybe he knew that was coming. I'm guessing that that was Friday night that was decided, and maybe it was a case that he was contacted by the Sunday Indo to see if he had any comment, knew that article was therefore coming, and thought at this stage, well, you know what, I'm going to try and ride out the storm. But by this stage, he was like, no, I can't with this. So he kind of mentioned his family and his kids and protected them and all that kind of stuff. But it's real unsavory stuff coming into a provincial final for sure.
Yeah, the more worrying part of this is that, by all accounts, it seems that Derry GA were contacted about the likelihood of whatever claims were made a year ago. And it seems that, they were contacted by Nicola Gallagher's father, I think. And I don't think he got any correspondence back. And if that is the case, that's obviously allegedly. If that is the case, that's very, very worrying indeed.